There's a fly kicking around. Let me see if I can get rid of this thing. Done. Hey y'all, Martin coming at you from the studio today with some Dutch Crunch rolls. This Bay Area classic is perfect for sandwiches. It's got a glaze on the outside that's crispy and crunchy. It's soft on the inside. It doesn't take that long. The recipe link is right there. Let's bake. Let's do the mix. Now, I'm using bread flour today. I want to have a really light bun. I want a nice, light, open structure. I want it to feel airy. And you're going to see me do a few things that are going to make this as light as possible. In the 90s, I lived in the Bay Area and I was exposed to Dutch Crunch rolls out there. I didn't really know what they were. I didn't actually grow up eating anything like that, but I remember to this day how compelling those rolls were. And so, you know, fast forward like 20 years, what, 30 years? 30 years, yikes. So fast forward a long time and I'm at King Arthur and someone says, hey, you know, we don't have a Dutch Crunch roll on the site. And I said, you know, like back in my like sense memory, like, you know, I should make those because they're delicious and we're gonna make a sandwich in a little bit, but first let's make this dough. Salt, sugar, yeast. I've got some oil. The oil is gonna help to make them tender. And then also I'm gonna get some water in here and I've warmed the water up just a little bit today. So everything in, and then I'm just gonna stir to combine. You could do this in your mixer if you want. I'm gonna leave this dough in this exact bowl through the entire rise. The fewer things that I have to clean, I think at heart I'm a lazy person, and the fewer dishes that I have to do, the better. So one bowl. So I'm just gonna knead in the bowl for just a second. At this point, I'm really only trying to get everything into the bowl and have it be well combined. Like I said, I want this all to happen in one bowl. I don't want to use a bunch of different containers if I can avoid it. So I clean that out a little bit. And then I'm going to put a little bit of oil in because later on I'm going to come back and I'm going to want to dump it out, right? So a little bit of oil. Okay, so got my oil in there. And then I'm going to put it back in the bowl. And I'm just going to fold it for a second. This is sort of the initial phase of strengthening this dough. And the reason that I'm doing that is that when you buy a Dutch Crunch roll, the ones that we know and love in restaurants in the Bay Area and across the country at this point, they've often been made in an industrial environment, which has tons of strength, right? They're using big machines, they got a lot of dough development. We can do that in the home environment, but the way we're gonna do it is with a mixed combine, a couple of folds, and then I'm gonna come back in a few minutes and do a full knead and really get some strength into this dough, leveraging the power of the bread flour to give us this nice, light, high, fluffy, sort of poofy roll. Okay, cover it, we'll be back in 15 minutes, and we'll knead the dough. We need to knead. So, dough had a little rest. Maybe you watched some YouTube videos. You know, don't forget to click, subscribe, all that stuff down below. We've got tons of bread videos. Okay, so I'm going to knead this in the bowl, right? So right now the dough has already begun to develop some strength, but it's not quite as stretchy as I want. And so I'm gonna just knead it in the bowl. And I'm basically just going to work it until it doesn't feel like it really wants to stretch anymore. So I'm just tensioning it. Now, why the pause? The pause is so that the water and the flour can get together and begin to develop strength. It's about a strengthening phase, and it's not that long. You don't have to spend a bunch of time here. I'm just looking that the dough sort of smooth out some. And it's doing that, and it feels like it won't tension anymore. So it's about at that point where I'm just gonna leave it alone. So cover it, put it in a comfortable spot, and we'll come back in 45 to 90 minutes to divide and make the rolls. We're getting there, right? Getting there. Okay, 45 to 90 minutes later, let's see what we got. Woo! It's big, right? Very happy dough, rising well. I used water that was a little bit warm. It's cool in here today. I'm thinking about guiding fermentation, right? So nice active dough, ready for the divide. Sprinkle a little flour on top, just so that when I turn it out, it doesn't stick to the bench. I like to release it from the side at this point, just sort of get it ready to come out of the bowl. Put a little bit of flour down, and then just turn it out. And already I can see the fine structure that will become the interior of the roll, right? So I'm gonna make 8 rolls. So I'm gonna divide these into 113 gram pieces. I'm trying to do a good job here dividing as closely as possible to the divide amount. I want the rolls to be all the same size, right? So I'm trying to be precise. That's why I'm using a scale. Okay, so I have them divided, and there isn't sort of like a variety of shapes right now. And what I want to do is a pre-shape. And the reason for the pre-shape is that I want the final form to be as even and consistent throughout all the rolls as possible. A pre-shape is like a stop on the way to that destination. It's sort of like the foundation of the house. If we do a good job with the pre-shape, the windows and doors go in smoothly, as I always say. So I've got a small amount of flour down. Probably the camera doesn't even pick it up. It's just a very light sheen of flour. This is not a particularly sticky dough, so it doesn't need a lot of flour on the work surface. In fact, too much flour will prevent the seams from sort of sealing as well as I would like. So I take my shape, I pat it a little bit on what I'd call like an east-west direction, right? And then I'm just gonna fold it to the middle and press to seal. And then I'm gonna roll it down. Until I end up with this tube. See how I did there? So that looks good to me. If you don't end up with something that's quite as tidy as that, don't fret. You're going to have another chance during the final shaping to sort of fix anything that you don't like. So let me show you one more time. I'm patting to remove any large gas bubbles. That's going to make it so that when I cut that roll open, I have a nice homogeneous crumb structure. I don't want a variably open crumb structure. I want it to be homogeneous, side to side, lots of small bubbles. That's going to be the hallmark of this nice roll. So I just press a little bit, and then I bring the sides to the middle, and I press again. Looks like I'm being pretty firm with the dough. I am a little bit, and it's okay. It's going to recover really well. That will help it be an easier sort of material to work with if it's fully degassed like that. And then I'm just going to roll it down. And you've made a tubular pre-shape. And this is a great thing to learn because when you make challah, when you make hot dog buns, when you make lots of different shapes, this is a good basic form to know. Trying to make these as even as possible. So sides to the middle. And then I just roll it down. This is exactly how you shape hot dog buns, strands for challah, lots of different breads. So finishing that one up. So we're gonna let these guys hang out for a few minutes. And the reason for that is that I want them to relax a little bit so that when I come back to shape them, I can make them a little bit longer. I want these to be about 8 inches or so, somewhere in that range. And so if I let them relax some, they'll elongate more easily. Make sure you cover them. If it's really dry, you may need something more than a towel. You might take a lid or an inverted sheet tray or something like that. Protect them a little bit, come back in 10 or 15. We're almost ready for the baking part. Okay, time to shape. I've got some sheet trays. I've got some parchment. This is like one of those tools. If you don't have it, you don't know. But if you have it, you know. It's super, super helpful. I'm putting a little bit of cornmeal or semolina down before I shape the rolls. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna add a little bit extra crunch to the bottom of the roll. Okay, set those aside. Let's look at what we got. Whoa, they're already moving. They look nice, right? They're starting to sort of get puffed up, which is what we want. They've also relaxed. So we're ready for shaping. I take one of the pieces that I pre-shaped, I bring it over to my shaping surface. Again, I'm working with just a very, very light dusting of flour. I can't even see it, but my hands can feel it. I'm gonna invert it so I have this beautiful seam on top. I'm gonna pat it slightly just to make sure that I don't have any large gas bubbles. Again, I want a nice sort of tight, homogeneous crumb, right? A homogeneous crumb inside. So a little bit of a degas, and then I'm gonna fold it towards me and press to seal. And this is basically like a letter, right? Other side towards the middle, press to seal. And then one more time all the way to that leading edge, yeah? You can do that with just your fingers. I like the baguette shaping trick where I sort of hide my thumb inside and just walk the heel of my hand down, pressing to seal. And I want a shape that's even end to end and about 8 inches long. I'm gonna put that seam side down onto my baking tray. With a mind toward making them as tubular as possible, I've got a seam which is on the bottom. I'm going to put that seam side down onto my baking tray. Yeah. Let me show you one more, and maybe I'll do this one a little bit differently, just to show you another way that you might find a little bit easier. So patting fully to the gas, moving side to side. I'm going to come down a little bit. So I came down a little bit. I'm going to do one more fold. And now what I want to show you on this one is how you can just use your fingertips to do this part. You don't have to do this whole thing like I do for shaping a baguette, right? You can literally just grab your fingertips and just press. I'm not pressing like this, right? We're not playing the piano. I'm using my hands as sort of paddles, right? Again, same thing. Just taking my hands and pressing to that leading edge to make sure that it's adhered. Now you're good. Now just double check to make sure that it's not stuck to the bench. It looks pretty good. And at this point, honestly, you could just put it over there. I might just check it just to make sure that it's sort of like evenly round, but I don't know. I'm not sure that that's really anything more than me just enjoying shaping a dough. Okay, so all my rolls are shaped. It's important to cover them, right? We're gonna come back in 30 minutes and we're gonna put the glaze on. In the meantime, put them someplace comfortable, get a cover on there so that they don't dry out too much, and then we'll do the glaze. Okay, we'll see you soon. Now we're to the part which really separates the Dutch crunch roll from a normal roll, right? We could just proof those and bake them. They would be delicious. They would make great sandwiches, but we want this crunch topping because it adds texture. So what is it? Well, it's a few different things. It's rice flour. I'm using rice flour because it doesn't have any glutinous structure, right? As the rolls sort of expand, we want it to just break and form that mottled sort of surface. So the rice flour is good for that. I've got some water because we need to hydrate things, and the water is slightly warm because we're using yeast. This actually rises. I've got some salt, some sugar, and a little bit of oil. We're gonna whisk that together, and you just set it aside to rise, and it will sort of proof up, but I'm just stirring it to hydrate and make sure that I sort of dissolve the sugar. That's it. You just stir it together, you set it aside, and this will be this glaze that we're gonna put on the rolls in just a few minutes. All right, so come back after half an hour, and it's starting to bubble just a little bit, and it looks a little bit foamy to me, and it's ready to go on. If it's really foamy, you could give it a good stir to sort of take some of the air out, but I'm just gonna give it a quick little mix to make sure that it's not too puffy. That looks good to me. And the rolls have risen some, right? They look like they are behaving themselves. We're only about, halfway through the rise or so. So they're not fully risen yet, but they are inflating in a way that looks right. I'm happy. And I'm gonna go ahead and just spoon some of the crackle topping onto each roll. And I'll make sure that I'm spreading it just a little bit. You can use the back of a spoon. You can use a small offset if you want. If a little bit runs down onto the tray, that's okay. Remember that these are gonna proof a little bit further. This topping, which is, highly seasoned, the yeast is in there working, creating some flavors. It's got a little bit of sugar, it's got some salt. Early in the sort of baking process, it's gonna set, but then the roll is gonna continue to rise. And as it rises, the sort of crackled surface will break up and it'll get crunchy, really beautiful. I saw a review on this recipe the other day, and basically the person was saying, I'm from the Bay Area and I've never had one of these better than the ones I made with this recipe. So I felt like, maybe I did something right today. I'm pretty much there. They look like a mess, right? It's not particularly great to look at this point, but we're gonna let them proof 45 to 75 minutes. Towards the end of proof, make sure that you've got 2 racks in your oven and that the oven is preheating to 450 degrees. You don't need to cover them. It's okay at this point. This glaze can just hang out. If it dries a little bit, it will even have a better crackle in the oven. So you can leave them uncovered, 45 to 75 minutes, get that oven preheated, we'll come back and bake. Okay, 65 minutes, they're looking good, well-proofed. They're a little bit marshmallowy. The oven is preheated to 450 degrees. As soon as I load them, I'm gonna take it down to 425. I'm gonna bake them for 20 to 24 minutes. Keep an eye on them. Remember that everybody's oven is different, y'all. So let's bake. crunchy. You know, you could put meatballs in here, you could put some red sauce and then put cheese, throw them back in the oven, toast them again. It's really a celebration of crunchy, crispy, and to sort of double down on that to have some fresh vegetables, a little bit of bright vinaigrette. It's almost like we're back in the Bay Area again, enjoying a deli sandwich out there. Show someone that you care by making the sandwich of their dreams. This bread, crunchy exterior, beautiful vegetables inside, a nice flavorful cheese, a little bit of vinaigrette. To me, that's literally love on a plate. Happy baking, y'all. Thanks for coming along.
Great.
God damn, that's a good sandwich.